I am filled with intense regret about deciding to live with my mother-in-law. As I heard her constant nagging, I found myself sighing deeper than I ever thought possible. My name is Jessica, I'm 33 years old, and my husband, Jake, is 28 years old. We got married 3 years ago and started a new life together. There were minor problems and misunderstandings at first, but we encouraged each other and overcame them. However, a year after our marriage, Jake's father passed away, and we couldn't just leave my mother-in-law in her grief. At Jake's suggestion, we decided to live with her, but I never dreamed she would be this difficult. I am usually good at dealing with nagging and complaints, but the words she threw at me were often baseless personal attacks, and it was really hard to endure.
You can't just stay in your room all the time, messing around on the computer. If you don't work properly, it's like you're eating for free.
Her sarcastic voice reached my ears from the hallway. She came to nag me right after I had just finished breakfast, even though I had taken the time and effort to prepare it myself. I was full of feelings to talk back to her, but I decided to endure it for today. I was planning to start cleaning the house after you finished breakfast, mother-in-law. And I'm not playing on the computer, I'm actually working.
You're always making excuses like that. You think you can look down on me because I don't understand computers, don't you?
This is not an excuse. In modern society, it has become normal to work all day using a computer. As a certified public accountant, I utilize my skills to work from home. I used to work under a senior at first, but now I have become independent and take on jobs by myself. The majority of my work can be completed at home using a computer, so I am striving to balance both household chores and work. I thought I had explained this properly to my mother-in-law, but
that's just a side job, isn't it?
This was her response. It seems like she doesn't think I am working full-time. In her mind, the only options for a daughter-in-law's work are part-time jobs or side jobs. I don't know if she can't keep up with the changes in modern society, or if she just wants material to nag me with. As for me, I intend to continue working full-time, but it seems our values are entirely different. I have been fighting against my mother-in-law's prejudice while properly managing both my household and work. I wake up early every morning, prepare breakfast and lunch for 3 people, and serve a healthy menu centered around vegetables for dinner, taking care of my family's health. I do not slack off on cleaning either. However, my efforts seem to have had the opposite effect on my mother-in-law. She only complains to me and never does any household chores herself. She spends her days leisurely, watching TV indoors all day, enjoying pachinko, and having tea with her friends. To such a person, I am seen as someone who is just living off her son. In reality, I am in a position that is socially more recognized than her. Despite that, being looked down upon by her is unpleasant, and I strongly feel like throwing her words right back at her. Amidst these frustrating days, when I saw the credit card bill that arrived one day, my eyes nearly popped out in astonishment. What on earth is this? A suit costs $1,500, and the bag is even $2,000. I have no recollection whatsoever of purchasing these expensive items. Upon carefully checking the bill, I realized that all these items were paid for with my husband's credit card. I immediately confirmed this fact with my husband. Hey, did you buy this suit and bag?
Oh, you found out, huh? Yeah, I bought them for work.
For work? You have a regular sales job, don't you? You don't need to buy such expensive items to do your job well. The suits my husband used to wear were around $300 each, and he used to purchase bags in a similar price range.
But you know, using good stuff makes me feel more motivated, and there's a clear difference in appearance. Look, haven't I become cooler recently?
Really? I'm not so sure. To be honest, I personally think that wearing suits that are too expensive for a young man in his 20s seems like he is being swallowed by the suit, and it actually looks embarrassing.
Jessica, you really have no eye for things.
My mother-in-law suddenly burst into our calm conversation between husband and me.
Jake, you look wonderful. Really cool.
Thanks, Mom.
After all, you're living off my son's earnings, and yet you have the audacity to nitpick about how he spends his money. That's quite bold of you. Who do you think you are?
My anger towards my mother-in-law, who just couldn't stop interfering in conversations with my husband, reached its limit. I was filled with the desire to question her about who she thinks she is. I had already had several grievances, but this behavior of hers caused even more discomfort. Moreover, there was not a single word of support from my husband. I would have liked to express my numerous complaints to my husband, but I realized that the discussion would not be productive with my mother-in-law intervening. Anyway, please refrain from making such expensive purchases, or at least consult with me in advance. With that, I ended the conversation. However, my words did not seem to hold much weight for my husband, and his extravagant spending continued. Furthermore, he was squandering money on luxurious dining at restaurants, high-end brand scarves and wallets, and long-distance taxi fares, purely for amusement. There was nothing truly necessary for his job. My husband was not like this in the past. It can be said that the biggest reason for his transformation was my mother-in-law. She held a strong belief that my husband should be keenly aware of his position in the household.
You are the head of this household. Therefore, it's important to act confidently and assertively, and you must absolutely never engage in housework. You shouldn't rely on an older wife. You should not let her have her way. You must make her understand that you are the one in a higher position in this household.
She would preach this to my husband day in and day out. She relentlessly chanted this to my husband like a spell. Being indecisive and not good at asserting himself, my husband was easily influenced by her words and began to adopt her way of thinking. I was concerned about this situation and felt that it was urgent to stop the curse-like words thrown by my mother-in-law to return my husband back to his original, kind, and gentle personality. Thus, I decided to visit my mother-in-law's room directly. As I entered the room, she was enjoying a TV talk show while having tea.
What is it? I'm busy right now. If you have something to say, make it quick,
she said to me, slightly irritated. Unperturbed, I said. Please listen to me carefully. Our savings are not increasing because my husband keeps wasting money. We need to save money for house repairs, for times of illness, and other future needs. Despite this,
Isn't that just because you're bad at managing money? At his age, he should be earning around $90,000 a year, right?
No, you've got it wrong. His annual income is 1/10 of that amount. I corrected her firmly. It seemed like she had misunderstood the amount by a factor of 10, thinking in units of $10,000, but I remained silent without saying anything. Taking my silence as an affirmation, my mother-in-law's eyes sparkled. Anyway, mother-in-law, could you please ask Jake to stop wasting money? Our financial situation is not promising, and I want to avoid spending money on things that are really unnecessary.
Oh, I see. If that's all you wanted to say, you should have told me sooner. Are we done talking now? If so, I'm busy, so could you please leave my room quickly?
She said to me with an irritated expression, as if she was shooing away a pesky animal. This was not a conversation. And then a few days passed, and suddenly one day, my mother-in-law appeared in my room, out of breath. What happened? Why are you here all of a sudden? I asked in surprise, and she confidently thrust a green piece of paper at me.
Come on, hurry up and sign this divorce paper. After all, you were after my son's money, weren't you, you poor thing?
In her hand was a divorce paper with my husband's name already written on it. I took the divorce paper from her hand and quickly headed to my husband's room. Jake, did you sign this?
Yeah, I did. Mom said Jessica is after your money.
I see, so you believe what your mother says.
But she's my mother.
Hearing those words from my husband, I made up my mind. I understand, then let's get a divorce. After that, I quickly packed my laptop, valuables, and the bare minimum of clothes into a suitcase, and left my in-laws' house. My parents' house was very far away, and I couldn't go back immediately, so I checked into a nearby business hotel for the time being, took a deep breath, and tried to calm down. Inside, I had already made up my decision. Being slandered as a gold digger was something I could never accept. I truly believed from the bottom of my heart that it was absolutely impossible to continue walking through life with a man who couldn't think for himself and was only capable of relying on others. I quietly wrote my name in the wife's column, and with that, I was ready. I decided to visit the local government office as soon as possible to submit it. I felt no problem whatsoever about the divorce itself. Rather, I even wanted to actively move in that direction since it had come to this. However, there was a feeling of resentment bubbling up somewhere in my heart. As I carefully went through the credit card statement, I began to devise a calm and precise plan for revenge. After submitting the divorce papers, I was thoroughly enjoying my time alone. I chose a room in a secure and well-protected building. The rent was a bit on the high side, but I had savings from my single days, and I was confident that I wasn't living a lifestyle disproportionate to my income. I now painfully understand just how much of a mental burden living with my husband and mother-in-law was. About a month after the divorce, I suddenly received a call on my cell phone from my ex-husband. Hello? What do you want?
Jessica, listen, I need you to hear me out, please.
What is it? If it's about the things I left behind, I already told you in an email that I don't need them.
No, it's not about that. I'm seriously in trouble. My credit card isn't working for some reason.
I secretly scoffed at him in my heart. What's he on about with his my credit card now, this man who's made it onto the blacklist? That's just to be expected. You say it's your card, but you're just a family member on the account. It's a logical consequence that your subcard won't work if I cancel the main card, isn't it?
Is that true? That's troubling.
We are complete strangers now. Please solve your own problems. Saying that, I hung up the phone. After that, my ex-husband persistently called me, but I never picked up the phone even once. In truth, my ex-husband had been in a situation where the burden of revolving payments and installment payments had become too much before we got married, and he had fallen into a state where he couldn't pay it off. I shouldered all of that burden for him and settled it. Looking back now, I should have settled the relationship itself. Well, there's no use looking back on the past now. Due to the delays, his credit information is damaged, and it would be difficult for him to get a new card in his own name. In any case, I have absolutely no relationship or responsibility with him now, and I can't afford to worry about him. After several days of relentless phone attacks from my ex-husband, a new development occurred. There was a person waiting in front of my condominium. It was my ex-mother-in-law. She happened to see me in the city and had followed me to find out where I lived. I couldn't help but be impressed with her initiative in my heart. She said she had something to talk about and clung to me, appealing loudly about something. Reluctantly, I decided to listen to her plea, and we moved to a nearby family restaurant. What do you want now, after all this time?
Jessica, please do this for me.
In her hand was a bankbook that I had used in the past, firmly grasped. The bankbook was filled out on every page, with carryover processing also completely done. In fact, it was something I no longer needed and hadn't particularly paid attention to.
This income figure, could it be yours, Jessica?
Yes, that's right. It's the amount I earned while working from home. I was seen as doing piecework by all of you in the past, but I actually have a proper profession. She fell silent, lost for words. She tightly gripped the bankbook, her hands trembling.
So the person earning an income of $100,000 wasn't my son.
There's no way that man could earn such a large amount. You should have faced reality a bit more. I clearly stated this, confronting her with the facts. The ex-mother-in-law found it hard to accept the fact that it was me, not her son, who had been earning an income of $100,000. In fact, my ex-husband's income was only about a tenth of mine just before our divorce. He had a low base salary in a sales position, with commissions as his main source of income, but he seemed satisfied with just the base salary without making any effort to increase his sales. He was living off my income, but even that might not have been a part of his calculations. Finally, even the ex-mother-in-law seemed to be forced to recognize this reality.
Jessica, it's not too late to reconsider. How about trying to mend your relationship with my son?
Time's up. I responded swiftly and resolutely, while tasting an indescribable sense of exultation. I interrupted my ex-mother-in-law's request. Yet, she continued to speak in a soft tone without stopping.
We fell in love and got married. Don't you think it's such a waste to separate now?
I don't think it's a waste. I feel it's much more wasteful to have the money I earned from working hard continually squandered by your family.
How could you say something so awful?
You should support your own life. How about trying to work? Maybe then, you could stop being just a freeloader. Or do you have some other business with me?
How can you abandon an old person like this? How cruel.
While the ex-mother-in-law's shouts of anger echoed behind me, I left the family restaurant feeling refreshed. I felt as if I had been liberated from the stress I had been carrying since we lived together. After scolding the ex-mother-in-law, I began preparing to deliver the final blow to my ex-husband. In order to move to the final stage of my plan, on Friday night, I concealed myself in front of a multi-tenant building in the city center. The building housed several shady shops, including a hostess club that my ex-husband frequently visited. A little after 9 p.m., my ex-husband finally showed up. He was walking cheerfully, arm in arm with a hostess club woman in flashy clothes.
Jessica, what the hell is this? What are you doing here?
You really don't think things through, do you? I'm the one holding the credit card, and yet here you are, enjoying luxury with it. I had noticed something suspicious long ago. When I scrutinized every detail of my credit card statement, I found the name of this place listed several times, always on Fridays. Knowing the name of the shop made it easy to pinpoint its location.
Wait, Jake. Who is this woman?
The woman who was walking arm in arm with Jake appeared to be in her early 20s. She was wearing an exceedingly short miniskirt and a blouse with a deep neckline. It was quite a provocative outfit. Hello. I'm Jake's ex-wife. We're complete strangers now, though.
Wait, Jessica, just wait a moment.
No, Jake. I have something to say. Please pay back all the debt from before our marriage, as well as the money of mine you wasted after we got married. You should be receiving a letter from my lawyer soon, so please deal with it properly. And you, girl. It seems like you've been having fun days, getting various things from Jake, but all of that was funded by my money.
Wait a moment, Jessica.
I completely ignored my ex-husband calling out to stop me, and I left the scene with dignity. A sense of satisfaction spread through my heart. I showed them, I am the much cooler woman. The voices of my ex-husband and that woman arguing faded away behind me. She must be his new fling. Upon closely examining my credit card statement, I found charges for high-end cosmetics, clothing from popular fashion brands among young women, and even fees for short stays at love hotels. I realized that all these suspicious transactions were concentrated on Fridays. Payments at hostess clubs were no exception, all were made on Fridays. As time went on, I gradually learned the truth. My ex-husband had been using Friday afternoons to date his mistress, showering her with luxurious gifts and taking her to hostess clubs as part of his routine. This behavior pattern became clear after scrutinizing my credit card statement. I decided to take direct action against my ex-husband, armed with this information. While I couldn't predict how his mistress would react upon learning the truth, I was certain that nothing good would come of it. Afterwards, I sent a certified letter through my lawyer, as planned, demanding repayment from my ex-husband. After the letter arrived at his parents' home, he and his mother promptly visited the law firm. Tearfully, they pleaded, "Please help us. Isn't it a lawyer's mission to help those in trouble?" The lawyer then inquired about their situation, discovering a mountain of overdue notices at their house. There were credit card bills, utility bills, and even tax-related documents, with amounts impossible to pay off on my ex-husband's salary. His mother's savings were almost gone as well. To make matters worse, the mistress was demanding a large sum as compensation, claiming she had been deceived. Frustrated, Jake raised his voice.
I'm not in a situation to pay off the credit card now. I need to know how I can get rid of this debt.
However, it was clear that he was asking the wrong person for advice. The lawyer was representing my interests, not his. The lawyer calmly suggested,
If you own a house, consider selling it. Use the proceeds to pay off the debts and compensation.
He emphasized a crucial point.
If you refuse to repay Jessica, you'll end up in court.
My ex-husband and his mother left the office thoroughly disheartened. Later, they contacted the lawyer.
We're preparing to sell the house and pay off the debts. Please wait a bit longer.
I knew it would come to this, they had no other options. Eventually, all the money my ex-husband squandered was returned to me. Considering what I went through, I could have demanded more, but I settled for just the repayment. They should be grateful. I also made them sign a document promising to stay away from me, ensuring they will never reappear in my life. I really feel refreshed. Saying this, I laughed out loud in my comfortable room, where I now live alone. Later on, my ex-husband Jake and former mother-in-law, after deciding to let go of the house to repay their debts, settled in a considerably old apartment in the neighborhood. I happened to pass by this apartment, and noticed that ivy was entwined high up on the walls, and the paint was terribly peeled off. It looked like it had been standing for at least 50 years. This property must have fit within the budget made up of Jake's salary and his mother's pension. However, far from learning from this difficult situation, Jake lost even more motivation to work and was eventually fired from his job. He showed no signs of looking for a new job and continued to spend his days drinking at home. One day, he fell down the apartment stairs while drunk and was taken to the hospital in an ambulance. On the other hand, his mother was overwhelmed taking care of Jake while he was hospitalized, and was also troubled with figuring out how to manage the hospital bills. Eventually, she herself became bedridden due to a severe back strain. Being immobile led to a rapid progression of dementia symptoms, and soon she was in a state where living alone was difficult. In the end, she had to move into an affordable care facility. One day, I received a call from Jake's relatives explaining in detail how difficult their situation was. I didn't want to hear it, but the relative kept talking one-sidedly. Eventually, they asked if I was willing to start over with Jake for their sake, but my answer was, of course, no. It seemed they expected that answer, as they didn't contact me again after that. 2 years have quickly passed since that tumultuous time in my life. During this period, I've taken a new step forward and experienced moving again. However, my living situation is now completely different from before. I no longer live alone, I share my life with a partner. After the divorce, I decided to make significant changes to the way I work. I moved back to my parents' house and started a full-time job in an office that is easily accessible from there. Just like my elderly parents, I wanted to be in a situation where I could rush to help in case of an emergency, considering my former mother-in-law's situation as well. Through my work at this new office, I was able to meet my current husband, who is a year younger than me, very reliable, and a completely different type of person than my previous husband. Most importantly, he loves and cherishes me deeply. In my previous marriage, the instability of income and personality made it unthinkable to have children, but with my current husband, I believe we can work together to raise children. The moment the pregnancy test showed a positive result, I imagined my husband's face filled with joy, and my cheeks naturally relaxed. I am determined to build a stable family foundation and attain happiness.